we transcend the ordinary and embark on a silent billion-year journey into the deepest secrets of existence. We will explore 7 profound stages of life, from the cosmic dawn to the miracle of evolution. Let your mind drift as we begin our voyage into the grand symphony of the stars. The universe began 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang, a singular moment where time and space were born. This colossal event was not merely an expansion, but the emergence of the fundamental building blocks of matter. Within the first few minutes, the universe's first atomic nuclei were forged. Over millions of years, simple gas clouds compressed under gravity to give birth to the first giant stars. In these massive furnaces, nuclear fusion synthesized the key elements for life: carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. When these stars perished in supernova explosions, they scattered these heavy elements into the void, performing a cosmic seeding for future worlds. These dust particles, floating in the eternal darkness, came together through the patient dance of gravity. Every rotation of these disks brought the atoms of living beings closer to one another. The death of the first stars had prepared the debris necessary for the birth of life. This cosmic cycle whispered that matter is never destroyed, but merely evolves into more complex structures. The silent void was essentially a gargantuan nursery, waiting for these elements to cool. The passage of time allowed matter to organize and eventually find life within the bosom of a planet. In this cosmic silence, the immense spans of time required for every atom to settle are the greatest proof of the universe's sheer patience. The massive collisions during the formation of planets were preparations for future stability. The magnetic shield created by the Earth's core built an invisible fortress against the scorching solar winds. In the vast river of time, every lava flow and every gas discharge was laying the bricks of the complex biosphere. When the dust clouds slowly dispersed and the first starlight struck the cooling ocean waters, something in this corner of the universe was ready to awaken. This awakening was the collective masterpiece of a multi-billion-year wait. In those early periods where silence reigned, time held a different meaning. There was not yet a mind to measure it. There were only the imaginary sounds of atoms colliding. As the first galaxies floated like massive rivers of light, every star carried a potential for life. A single carbon atom forged in a star would, millions of years later, become part of a human's DNA. This demonstrates that the universe is not just a machine, but an integrated structure connected by invisible bonds. Everything was like the echo of a single breath, moving from the density of that first moment to the complexity of today. With the formation of the Earth 4.5 billion years ago, the conditions for life began to sprout. Carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen were transported to our planet, forming the backbone of biological molecules. The early chaotic atmosphere, combined with lightning discharges, served as a massive reactor where inorganic substances transformed into organic building blocks. As the crust cooled, the roar of volcanoes gave way to the deep silence of the oceans. The rains that fell incessantly for years allowed water to seep into every crack. These vast oceans became the most complex chemical laboratories in the universe. Water was not just a liquid, it was the sacred paper upon which life was written. The foundations of life were shaped by complex and functional interaction networks established by the elements. Chemical evolution represents that critical process where inanimate matter increased its level of complexity, evolving into systems that exhibit the characteristics of life. On the surface of the early Earth, simple organic molecules such as amino acids, sugars, nucleotides, and fatty acids could form spontaneously as a result of atmospheric interactions. However, for these molecules to form a system, they needed to unite, transfer energy, and, most importantly, store information. The mineral richness of hydrothermal vents and the cycles of tidal pools along the seashores forced these molecules to polymerize. This was the most radical step, the point where matter was programmed to replicate itself. In this prebiotic world where time flowed incessantly, nature acted like the most patient artist. Millions of different molecular combinations were tested, and only the most resilient ones survived. During this process, polymerized molecules became complex structures with specific geometries. Hydrogen bonds between water molecules help these gargantuan organic chains fold into three-dimensional functional shapes. These folding processes began to function like a lock and key system, determining how a molecule would interact with other substances in its environment. This period, where information was not just trapped within matter, but was in constant exchange with its surroundings, was a fascinating transition phase where chemistry slowly handed over the torch to biology. This silent molecular dance was repeated thousands of times every second, sometimes breaking apart, sometimes merging, but never stopping. Nature's infinite patience transformed randomly assembled atoms into genetic sequences, the most complex library in the universe. In the depths where these molecular interactions occurred, the thermal movements of water rocked the molecules like a cradle, helping them find their most stable states. Bonds that dissolved and reunited as the heat rose and fell created the first rhythmic pulse of life. There was no heartbeat yet, but the periodic oscillation within the chemical reactions themselves was a sign that biological time had begun. The way each molecule recognized another was like a magnificent orchestral piece governed by the pushing and pulling of electrical charges. At this microscopic scale, the rise of order out of chaos was the most concrete evidence of the universe's tendency to self-organize. These chemical structures, waiting patiently, would realize history's greatest transformation once they found a suitable energy source and an enclosed environment. During this complex interaction of molecules, the attractive forces between atoms did not just establish simple bonds, they also granted molecules memory-like properties. A protein or nucleic acid with a specific shape would begin to align the molecules around it according to its own template. This was nature's first photocopier. Matter no longer just existed, but began to manipulate its environment to create copies of itself. Minerals and metal ions within the water provided the necessary spark for these reactions, accelerating the chemical processes. Clay layers in a riverbed or warm pools on a volcanic island offered perfect surfaces for these complex molecules to gather and organize. Long chains formed by the interlocking of molecules had begun to write the first sentence of life. Every bond whispered, in the language of the universe, "I am here, and I wish to continue." This silent and deep perseverance transformed the cold laws of chemistry into the warm and vibrant dynamism of biology. This process of matter folding upon itself prepared the physical foundation for even the greatest mystery in the universe, consciousness. At the center of this process lies the RNA world hypothesis. The first molecular systems had to possess a structure that could both store information and accelerate chemical reactions. Ribozymes, the precursor forms of RNA, were versatile molecules capable of performing both functions. Their ability to self-replicate and mutate introduced the mechanism of natural selection into chemical evolution. During the same period, amino acids formed the first primitive proteins by establishing peptide bonds. Proteins were much more efficient catalysts than RNA, while RNA specialized in storing information. This collaboration created a blueprint for an organized metabolism by ensuring the continuity of biochemical cycles. Over time, these interactions became so precise that even the vibration of electrons within atoms became part of this gargantuan molecular machine. The more stable helical structure of DNA provided a physical form durable enough to preserve this complex information for millions of years without corruption. When of chemical evolution, organic polymers, and lipid membranes came together, protocells emerged. These structures began to exhibit the three most fundamental criteria of life: compartmentalization, metabolism, and replication. The double-layered membrane structure of lipids formed a selectively permeable barrier, protecting the internal chemistry of the protocell from the chaotic fluctuations of the external environment. This stability increased the probability of molecules within the cell finding one another. Chemical reactions were no longer occurring at random. They were now taking place according to a specific order. This was the first concrete example of matter's transformation from a passive object into an active subject responding to its environment. These small, fragile, but stable bubbles were building the first fortresses of life in the depths of the ocean. The chaos beyond the membrane gave way to a regulated flow within the microscopic world of the cell. This inner world was less affected by the pH balance of the outer water, providing the serene environment required for delicate molecular machines to function. Thanks to selective permeability, only nutrients beneficial to the cell were taken in, while wastes were expelled. This continuous exchange represented the most fundamental law of life: dynamic balance. Each protocell was essentially a tiny universe in its own right, a silent cocoon carrying the seeds of biological complexity that would last for billions of years. As these tiny bubbles drifted with ocean currents, their collisions, occasional mergers, or fragmentation were the most primitive yet vital experiments of life. The self-organizing ability of lipid layers was actually a result of the distant relationship between water and oil. It was as if the physical laws of nature had conspired from the very beginning to encase life within a sheath. This protective shell increased the frequency of molecular collisions inside, boosting the chances of low-probability reactions by millions of times. An amino acid trapped within a cell membrane was no longer just a speck lost in the vastness of the ocean. It was now part of a system. As these tiny structures floated beneath the ocean waves, they were declaring the first real property of the planet. Here, within this membrane, there is life. This miraculous structure of the cell membrane was not just a barrier, but also a communication channel. The first protein channels began to take shape on these membranes, reading chemical messages from the outer world and relaying them inside. A protocell could feel through these channels if the amount of food in its surroundings decreased or if the temperature rose. This sensation was the physical origin of life's most basic instincts, the desire for self-preservation and survival. The fluid inside the membrane was like a time capsule, sealing the chemical structure of the ancient oceans forever. Even today, the ion balance within our cells carries the memory of those primordial seas from billions of years ago. This continuity proves how deep-rooted life's history is and how solid the foundations upon which it was built are. Every division of a protocell meant the doubling of an accumulated experience. While those that divided incorrectly perished, the more stable ones continued their path, thus climbing the first steps of the long ladder toward biological perfection. This silent and microscopic struggle was the precursor to everything, from the world's largest forests to the most intelligent brains. The metabolic processes within the protocells were initially quite primitive. The first energy transfers were carried out by taking advantage of minerals in the environment or imbalances in hydrothermal vents. However, over time, these structures incorporated simple enzyme systems capable of synthesizing molecules like ATP. The continuity of energy allowed protocells to grow and divide when they reached a certain size. This division is the crudest form of replication, one of life's most miraculous features. Initially, this division process was an irregular event. However, with the intervention of DNA, it was ensured that each new offspring carried similar characteristics to its ancestor. This internal balance, known as homeostasis, was the greatest step that allowed the organism to gain an autonomous identity from its environment. Life was no longer at the mercy of the external world's arbitrary movements. It had become a structure that preserved its own internal balance. These structures, drawing their own boundaries, were the first and most magnificent victory of biological independence. With the formation of cell-like structures into self-replicating systems, the Earth met its first true inhabitants, prokaryotic organisms. These first living beings, divided into bacteria and archaea, adapted perfectly to the Earth's extreme conditions. Under an oxygen-free atmosphere, high temperatures, and intense radiation, they spread to every corner of the planet, establishing the first global ecosystem. These organisms sustained life by oxidizing compounds, such as sulfur and iron, to obtain energy. However, the real major event that would change the fate of life was the evolution of photosynthesis, the use of sunlight as an energy source. While the young oceans of the Earth were teeming with these microscopic yet determined creatures, Each was silently rewriting the planet's chemistry. There were no plants or animals yet. There were only these ancient laborers floating in the water, dividing to multiply, and storing the energy coming from the sun. The metabolic activities they carried out were changing everything from the color of the oceans to the scent of the atmosphere. The division of a single cell was the most powerful revolution echoing in the silence of the universe. This silent reign, lasting for billions of years, laid the unshakable foundations of life so deep that all biological diversity today still breathes through the metabolic pathways they invented. The biofilms formed by these organisms covered the rocks like a shroud, while gargantuan microbial mats formed on the ocean floors. The mineral layers settling beneath the ocean waters were like a fossil diary of the breathing of these tiny creatures. This microscopic activity, starting with the sunrise every day, established a massive production line in the upper layers of the ocean. Every photon of light, upon entering a cell, was stripped of its carbon bonds and transformed into life energy. This silent production process did not stop for even a single second for billions of years. Nature had learned to realize the greatest changes with its smallest workers. These microscopic armies were transforming the planet into a gargantuan organism that breathed, reacted, and grew as a whole. Their success showed that life was not just an individual struggle for survival, but a global solidarity. The reason prokaryotes ruled the planet for so long was their incredible genetic flexibility. A bacterium could receive genetic information directly from another bacterium, thus learning the way to adapt to a new environment in a few minutes, instead of waiting millions of years. This horizontal gene transfer was like the first internet network on Earth. Information was constantly flowing, being shared, and being updated. When an archaea species found a way to survive in the hottest part of the ocean, this genetic secret spread rapidly to others. This collective intelligence ensured that life was built on a foundation so strong that no disaster could completely erase it. Even atmospheric changes, volcanic winters, or meteor strikes could not break the resilience of this microscopic network. They were the true guardians of the planet, silent heroes who tilled the soil, cleaned the waters, and established the chemical balances necessary for life. Even today, with every breath we take, we reap the fruits of that great energy revolution they started billions of years ago. Photosynthesis is the greatest energy revolution in biological history. Initially starting in a form that did not produce oxygen, this process evolved over time into oxygenic photosynthesis, which releases oxygen. The acquisition of this ability by cyanobacteria led to the Great Oxidation Event. Although the oxygen accumulating in the atmosphere was toxic to many species, it paved the way for aerobic respiration, a much more efficient energy production mechanism. Oxygenated respiration allowed living things to extract 10 times more energy from food. This surplus energy served to allow cells to grow even larger and eventually opened the way to multicellularity. The first shades of sky blue began to appear during this period. The oceans cleared, and the atmosphere began to form the ozone layer. This was the greatest declaration that the world was a living sphere, shaped by living things themselves. As moved beyond the microscopic simplicity of the early Earth, the mechanism of evolution began to produce increasingly complex and specialized forms. Biological diversity is the result of billions of years of trial and error, where every environment on the planet became a laboratory for adaptation. With the surplus energy provided by oxygenic respiration, cells were no longer just surviving, they were expanding their boundaries. This era marked the birth of eukaryotic cells, structures that contained a nucleus and specialized organelles. The most revolutionary event of this period was endosymbiosis, where one cell began to live inside another, eventually evolving into mitochondria and chloroplasts. This was the first great partnership in history, a merger that transformed independent organisms into integrated systems of immense power. In the vastness of the prehistoric oceans, life began to experiment with form and function on a scale never seen before. Evolution was no longer just about chemical efficiency. It became a master sculptor of anatomy. Multicellularity emerged as a response to the need for larger size and more specialized tasks. Cells began to communicate, cooperate, and eventually differentiate into tissues and organs. This transition was like moving from a single instrument to a full orchestra. The silence of the ancient seas was now filled with the rhythmic movements of soft-bodied organisms, the first precursors to the grand diversity of the animal kingdom. These early creatures were the pioneers of sensory perception, developing the first primitive eyes and nerves to navigate their world. The environment itself acted as a ruthless but creative force, selecting only the most ingenious designs. Those that could sense light, detect chemical trails, or move with greater agility found new niches to thrive. Adaptations were not just physical, they were behavioral and ecological. The first predator-prey relationships emerged, sparking an evolutionary arms race that accelerated the pace of change. Every new defense, a harder shell, a faster fin, or a better camouflage, was met with an even more sophisticated offense. This dynamic struggle turned the Earth into a vibrant tapestry of life, where every thread was connected to another in a complex web of interdependence. As the oceans became crowded, the competition for resources forced life to look toward the boundaries of its world. Coastal regions and shallow waters became nurseries for innovation. In these transitional zones, organisms developed the ability to tolerate varying salinities and fluctuating temperatures. The genetic toolkit of life was expanding, incorporating new ways to regulate internal environments and respond to external stimuli. This period of intense diversification was a testament to life's inherent drive to occupy every possible space. The genetic memory of these ancient adaptations is still written in the DNA of every living creature today, a legacy of resilience that has survived mass extinctions and planetary shifts. The pinnacle of this era was the Cambrian explosion, a relatively short burst of time where most major animal phyla appeared in the fossil record. It was as if life had suddenly unlocked a vault of infinite possibilities. Skeletal structures, complex digestive systems, and advanced predatory behaviors transformed the oceans into a theater of intense biological activity. This explosion of diversity ensured that life was no longer a fragile experiment, but a dominant force capable of reshaping the entire planet. The foundation for everything that would follow, including the conquest of land and the rise of consciousness, was laid during these billions of years of patient, evolutionary craftsmanship. For billions of years, life was confined to the protective cradle of the oceans. The land was a barren, silent wasteland, scorched by ultraviolet radiation and devoid of the buoyancy that water provided. However, as the ozone layer thickened a gift from the oxygen-producing bacteria, the continents became less hostile. The conquest of land was not a single event, but a slow, agonizing process of adaptation that lasted millions of years. It required a complete reinvention of biological systems, new ways to breathe, new ways to move without floating, and most importantly, new ways to prevent the internal water of life from evaporating into the dry air. The pioneers of this new frontier were not animals, but simple plants and fungi. Mosses and early vascular plants began to carpet the edges of rivers and lakes, turning the gray rocks into shades of green. These plants were the first to develop veins to transport water upward and skins to hold it in. As they decomposed, they created the planet's first true soil, preparing the ground for those that would follow. This greening of the continents changed the climate and the atmosphere, drawing down carbon dioxide and pumping out even more oxygen. The land was no longer a desert. It was becoming a garden, waiting for the first breath of animal life. Following the trail of the plants, the first invertebrates, scorpions, spiders, and early insects made their way onto the land. Their hard outer skeletons, which had protected them in the sea, served a new purpose on land. They acted as armor against drying out and provided the structural support needed to defy gravity. In the silence of these early forests, the first wings began to flutter, marking the moment life took to the skies. Meanwhile, in the shallow pools, a group of lobe-finned fish was undergoing a miraculous transformation. Their fins were becoming sturdier, and their swim bladders were evolving into lungs. They were the bridge between two worlds. The transition from fish to tetrapod is one of the most iconic chapters in the history of the Earth. It was a journey of profound struggle where every inch gained on land was a victory for evolution. These early amphibians still needed the water to lay their eggs, keeping them tied to their ancestral home. But with the evolution of the amniotic egg, a self-contained private pond protected by a shell life finally broke its last bond with the water. Animals could now wander deep into the heart of continents, colonizing forests, deserts, and mountains. The land, once silent and dead, was now vibrating with the sounds of walking, crawling, and breathing. This expansion onto land triggered a new wave of diversification. Massive forests of giant ferns and horsetails rose toward the sun, providing the habitats that would eventually lead to the age of reptiles and, much later, mammals. The conquest of land was life's ultimate declaration of independence. It proved that the blueprints of biology were flexible enough to thrive in the most challenging environments. Every forest we walk through today, every bird that sings in the trees, and every step we take on solid ground is a tribute to those first ancestors who dared to leave the water and claim the world beyond the shore. Final extended version. After billions of years of relentless struggle, trial, error, and an unbreakable resilience, life reached a stage where it no longer just existed, but began to know itself. This continuity is a miracle of persistence that has survived 5 catastrophic mass extinctions, the shifting of entire continents, and the freezing of the world into ice. Yet, the most profound transformation in the history of the Earth occurred when the complexity of the nervous system reached a critical tipping point. In the silent forests and across the vast, sun-drenched savannas, brains evolved not just to react to immediate stimuli, but to map the environment, to remember the past, to predict the future, and eventually to wonder about the why behind it all. This was the dawn of consciousness, the sacred moment when the universe finally opened its eyes to observe and contemplate its own existence. This emergence of self-awareness turned biological evolution into a rapid cultural evolution. Knowledge and experience were no longer strictly confined to the slow generational passage of DNA. They began to flow through language, complex stories, art, and the creation of tools. We, as human beings, are the latest, most curious chapter in this gargantuan cosmic epic. Every single cell in our bodies carries the chemical signature of those ancient, primordial oceans, and every atom was once forged in the crushing, incandescent hearts of stars that died billions of years before we were born. When we stand beneath the vast canopy of the night sky and look up at the distant stars, we are not looking at something foreign or separate. We are looking at our own biological origins. We are the cosmos made manifest, a sentient bridge spanning the gap between a primordial past and an infinite unknown future. The journey from the chaotic density of the Big Bang to the intricate web of the human mind is a testament to the fact that the universe is not a cold, mechanical machine, but a self-organizing masterpiece of unimaginable complexity. Every heartbeat we feel is a direct continuation of that first rhythmic pulse that began in a dark hydrothermal vent at the bottom of a forgotten sea. Every thought that flashes through our minds is an echo of the electrical charges that once danced through the very first neural networks of our ancient ancestors. We carry the cumulative history of 13.8 billion years within the folds of our brains, written in a profound language of atoms, neurons, and light. This realization brings with it an immense responsibility. We are the temporary guardians of this delicate, breathing oasis, charged with preserving the balance of the only home we have ever known, and continuing the quest for understanding that began with the very first spark of life. In the grand, terrifying silence of the infinite space that surrounds us, our planet remains a vibrant, pulsating oasis of complexity. The story of life is far from reaching its conclusion. It is a living, breathing, and ever-unfolding process that continues to evolve with every passing second and every heartbeat. This evolution is now moving beyond biology, as our curiosity drives us to explore the very fabric of reality and the laws of physics that govern our existence. We are the navigators of a tiny blue ship in a vast cosmic sea, carrying the dreams of every ancestor who ever looked at the horizon with hope. Our existence is not a mere accident. It is the manifestation of the universe's inherent potential to achieve complexity, harmony, and wisdom. Every discovery we make, every mystery we solve, and every bond we forge is a tribute to the long, arduous path that led us here. As we look toward the horizon of the future, we carry within us the ancient resilience of the first prokaryotes, the daring ambition of the first creatures that crawled onto land, and the boundless curiosity of the first dreamers who looked at the moon and wondered, "We are the inheritors of a 4-billion-year legacy of patience, perseverance, and survival." This legacy is not a burden, but a beacon, guiding us through the shadows of the unknown. The universe took an eternity to create a mind capable of pondering its own beginning. And in that very act of contemplation, the great cosmic circle is finally completed. We are the stardust that has come alive to look back at the stars, finding meaning, beauty, and purpose in the ancient light that reaches us from the depths of time. We are the witnesses of the infinite, the children of the stars, and the voice of the silent cosmos.